This is a collective committee meeting for June 17 to order. First committee is the Finance Committee, and we discussed this evening in the Finance Committee the 2020 tax budget, which was passed by the Finance Committee. So, Mr. President, if you could get some highlights of the 2020 tax budget and the process for the residents.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. The tax budget is the first start to an annual appropriations or an annual fiscal calendar. That is, we send over a tax budget to the county, showing them the need to levy the property taxes that the residents have approved for municipal purposes. For 2020, we would be looking to collect the same amount of millage that has been collected by the city for 5+ years. There'll be no changes in the millage total, and the tax budget that you have before you just shows the need and displays the need to the county to go ahead and request that property tax be collected for our purposes. This is the first step. We will approve the tax budget, send it into the county. They will then come back after recess and send us a tax rate resolution showing the actual millage that I just spoke of, and council then will accept the tax rate resolution, send it back to the county, and then from there we will get into our actual budget meetings and budget hearings in October, November, and December, looking to have the appropriations done prior to January 1 of 2020. So again, this is the first step. It is just a demonstration of need to the county for the collection of the property taxes for the fiscal year 2020.
And when do you need this passed, what we were talking about before?
It definitely needs to be adopted before we go on recess. I'd have to have it to the county, I believe, by July 19th.
Okay. I'll work that out with Mr. Rossman.
Thank you, sir.
Questions on the 2020 tax budget? Next item is the codified ordinance chapter 252, procurement of goods and services. This is a document that Mr. Lieberman's been working on, and it's a document to update us with the charter changes, but the Finance Committee decided to hold off on this and complete this upon our return. There's a number of procedures and processes that need to be updated or redefined, and I didn't want to bring it until everything was put together and made sense to everybody, so we decided to hold it and bring it back at that point in time. And if there's any other policies that we need to rescind, we can do it all at once. So there's really no more than that at this point in time. Questions on that? Let's go to Human Resources and Mr. Zuber.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. The first item we have this evening is the Cable Production Coordinator rate of pay. This would give the Cable Production Coordinator an increase, although it's much less than the administration requested. It's still about $1.50 an hour increase. Would be effective on August the 1st. This came out of the committee on a 3-0 vote, and based on exactly what this particular person does in that particular department, I think that we had a long discussion in regards to this, and originally when it came to the committee it was about some disparities with her compared to others, but as we got further into it, all the different things that she does has enhanced over the last several years as far as what exactly her job duties are, and we're also looking at updating both the job description, the job duties. I mean, Cable Production Coordinator does not really express what her job really is, so we're going to be looking at that, bringing it back in the committee in the fall to look at that a little bit more.
Okay. Questions with the Cable Production Coordinator rate of pay? Anyone in the audience? And what's your intention, sir, Mr. Zuber?
Because it's supposed to go in effect on August 1st, we would have this. We would ask for passage on second reading.
Second reading
at the last council meeting before break.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Next item is when the assistant clerk received her pay increase last month. part of that agreement was that she would not receive the 2.5% increase that all employees will receive on the 1st of July of this year. So we need to repeal that part of Ordinance 132-208, wage increase for the non-bargaining unit personnel. As I said, this was agreed upon when she did receive her pay increase last month, I believe it was.
Okay.
And this was also voted out of committee 3-0.
Questions then with the amended ordinance 132-2018, wage increase for non-bargaining unit personnel. Any questions on that item? Amount of human resources. And your attention's here? 2 or 3 readings or?
No, we need to pass this on emergency next week.
Okay.
So it's effective before the July 1st deadline.
Alrighty. Next item?
The next item is to amend ordinance 53-2017, which establishes the compensation for part-time seasonal employees. The mayor can hire any part-time seasonal employee up to $15 an hour. This would increase that rate of pay by the bargaining unit increase in pay, the negotiate percentage that would be by the bargaining unit. So as of July 1st of this year, it would go up by 2.5%, which I believe is 38 cents. And that's just to keep this as an ongoing thing so that we can keep up with any issues that we have with these particular people. This also was voted out of committee 3-0.
Questions then with the amended ordinance 53-2017, compensation for part-time seasonal and temporary employees. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. It's important to note that we do have a number of employees making $9, $10, $11, $12, $13 an hour, so it's not to assume that every part-time person is going to rise to $15 an hour, and after July 1st, $15.38. We are still hiring people at a lower level, and people have been here for a number of years. We bring them closer to 15. Now we're at the point where there are a number of people who are frozen at that level, and it seems only reasonable to make that adjustment. We think this is a step in the right direction, and it will be a fair situation for the people who work hard for us on a part-time basis. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. No other questions? Yeah, what's your intentions here, Mr. Zuber?
I would ask for this to be passed at first reading also next week, just simply because it would be done prior to the July 1st.
Thank you. Next item.
Next item is a request from the fire chief to change the general qualifications for the part-time fire inspector. There was a email that he did send out, and what we're doing is changing general qualifications number 3 from a valid Ohio EMT certification to a valid state of Ohio CPR and first aid training. The chief feels that this would give him a bigger pool of people to look for this particular job, number 1. But number 2, these people don't go out and perform any services to the public that an EMT or a paramedic would. So he feels that for that to be in this particular job description only discriminates for him to get the people that he's really looking for, the good people to fill this particular position.
Okay.
And I'll talk to the chief on this to see what his prerogative is on passage. I hope it'll go 3 readings, but I will speak with him about this.
Ms. Rossman on that. Questions with the fire inspector job description? Any other items?
I just have one other item, and it's the part-time dispatcher in the police department. We did get an email at the end of last week about the appointment of a person for that, and I believe Mr. Cause has agreed to take that in his committee later this week, that he'll discuss that and pass it out of his committee later this week.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Zuber.
Thank you.
We'll go to the Safety Committee. Mr. Koss.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Just one item, and that's a liquor license for the business Poncho and PD Inc., doing business as Johnny's Boathouse, located at 33424 Lake Road, Avon Lake. And this is a new liquor license. This has been reviewed by the Chief of Police, and he had no objections or concerns. And I'll be asking that this be placed at a motion on next week's council agenda, stating that the city does not request a hearing.
Okay, questions anything with the liquor license for Poncho and PD? Went through the Safety Committee. Alrighty, anything else, Mr. Koss?
No, sir, that is all.
Thank you. Next is the Sewer Committee. Mr. Minibush isn't here, so we deal with the water main replacement project, the OWDA loan application. This went through the Sewer Committee last week and passed 2-0. So, Mr. Wrights, I'm going to turn that over to you.
Thank you, Council President. This is for water line replacement project for section of Lake Road across the street from the power plant, Jaycox Road south of Walker between the Walker Road and the railroad tracks, in a short section on West Shore Drive to connect and create a loop of that water line over there. So this project is currently out for bids. Bids are supposed to be open on June the 21st, and the request was for council to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement with OWDA for the loan on this project. Like we've done many other projects, finance director is very familiar with OWDA and he works well with them. So this request is for this next project, which in particular the Jaycox Road one. Anybody that drives on Jaycox Road south of Walker knows the condition of the road because of the water main breaks that we've had over there. So these are 3 priority areas for water line repairs and replacements, and they would like to move forward with that project yet this summer.
So I think we agreed in a meeting to go emergency on this next week.
Yeah, the request was for it to be emergency next week so that they can have the loan agreement in place before the project is awarded. Okay, questions anything with the water main replacement project loan? Mrs. Campbell.
Just a question. It says the City of Avon Lake hereinafter referred to as the LGA. What does LGA stand for?
Local government authority.
Yes.
Local Government Authority?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions? That concludes the Sewer Committee. We now go to the Planning Commission. I do have some notes from Mrs. Fenderbosch on the Planning Commission. Both these items that we have were presented last week, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on it. The first one is the Waterside Crossing LTD revision of the General Development Plan, modification of density standards. The case was voted on by all members of the Planning Commission. Got 100% support. The request is made to take the property, which is the daycare building, out of the General Development Plan for Waterside Crossing. The daycare building had been there for several years, and the parcel is presently in the green zone of the Waterside Crossing General Development. By removing this property from the General Development, the density changes from 2.497 units per acre to 2.514 units per acre, and no additional housing is proposed. This will get 3 readings, and this was a presentation that she made last week. Questions dealing with this development plan, Waterside Crossing? Next item is dealing with Moore Road Properties LTD rezoning from R1 to B2. The request is rezone the parcel dealing with the daycare, which has been closed. The other firms are interested in the property. However, banks today will not lead on a business that is zoned residentially. So by changing the zoning to B2 property, the owner believes a new business will open in Avon Lake using that property. The north adjoining properties are zoned as B2. So this would hopefully bring a business into that building. This was voted unanimously by the Planning Commission, and this again was presented last week. The building we're talking about is 525 Moore Road which is the daycare, the former daycare building. There will be a public hearing on August 26th on this, which would be the second reading. This will have 3 readings as well. Questions dealing with this development? And that concludes the planning. Next we go to legislative items. First item is third readings. Temporary legislation 11,258, adopting a job description for the mayor's administrative assistant. Any questions on that? Anyone in the audience? Next is temporary legislation 11,259, amending codified ordinance section 141601 residential code. Any questions on that? Anyone in the audience? And that concludes the legislation portion for next week. Any announcements anybody has? Mayor?
I need to announce, sir, the June 29th baseball game between the Ohio Muffins and the Avon Lake team, which is managed by Marty O'Donnell. And it's going to be at Weiss Park at 2 p.m. First 200 people get free Cracker Jacks. It's going to be a lot of fun. So look forward to seeing people there on that day.
Thank you,
and it will not rain, sir, I promise you.
No, that's good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Good job as a weatherman. That's for sure. Any other announcements anybody has? Mr. Wrights.
Yeah, I'd like to thank local business. DEI Engineering has been working with us to do a car show at Weiss Field for the past several years. It's a very good team effort between the city and this local business, and unfortunately the weather didn't cooperate with us, but yet the call was made on Friday to cancel it due to the rain, and they had spent money on t-shirts and certain things, but it was very unfortunate that we had to cancel it. But as I sat in my house looking outside at 4 o'clock when it was supposed to start, and it was coming down in buckets, I think it was a wise choice to do that ahead of time. Food trucks had to get called off. They put a lot of work into the planning for this, and they were really doing an outstanding job of reaching out to get people to come in here. And it was just unfortunate that Mother Nature didn't cooperate with us, because I really was encouraged and I was really, really looking forward to it. But unfortunately, the weather didn't cooperate. So we hope to continue that and roll into next year and try it all over again. So, but I want to thank them, because they put a lot of effort into this to work with the city to do this project and do this event. And unfortunately, we just couldn't pull it off. So I want to thank them.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Rice, for that announcement. I think it was a wise choice. The fields would have been really tore up, and then plus the weather being raining the whole day. Any other announcements? Okay, next is public input. You have 5 minutes to speak to council. Anyone this evening like to speak to council, give your name and address. Alrighty, so that concludes our meeting for this evening. Thank you for viewing.